On the morning of September 10th, as the sun pierced the clear Utah sky, the campus of Utah Valley University, usually peaceful, suddenly became the center of an unprecedented political nightmare. Amid the bustle of student life, no one imagined that a chilling script had been prepared in advance, with its target being one of the most controversial figures in American politics, Charlie Kirk. A young man stepped out of a gray Dodge Challenger, so ordinary in appearance he could have vanished into the crowd. But beneath that maroon t-shirt and the black cap with a white logo lay a terrifying secret, and in that very moment, the fate of thousands of witnesses, and perhaps the nation itself, seemed to change forever. The story began with a clue that seemed tiny, a phone call from a member of Tyler Robinson's family, the man later accused as the shooter. On the night of September 11, just hours after the attack, Robinson's veiled confession was brought into the light by his own family. A relative contacted a family friend, and the information quickly reached the Washington County Sheriff's Office. A new door opened, and behind it came a whirlwind investigation where every minute detail was threaded into a grim tapestry. As investigators combed through every frame of surveillance footage from the university, they found images of Robinson arriving at 8:29 that morning. He wasn't in a hurry. He walked onto campus like any ordinary visitor. But his eyes, his gait, and the meticulous preparation hinted at something else. He had chosen this place as the stage for a politically symbolic assassination. And every detail, from the clothes to the cap to the light-colored shoes, was kept the same when investigators later encountered him, as if he were declaring, "I am the one who did this." Testimony from his relatives darkened the picture further. They recalled that, in recent years, Robinson had become obsessed with politics, often ranting about figures he despised. In particular, at a family dinner before the fateful day, he mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be coming to UVU, and the contempt he expressed for the speaker was laced with an uncommon venom. The family described Robinson as someone who saw hatred everywhere, and that very lens seemed to spark a blood-stained tragedy. Another crucial thread came from Robinson's roommate. When questioned, the roommate admitted that Robinson had joked on Discord about guns and nebulous plans. But when the phone was opened in front of the investigators, the truth was no joke. A string of messages appeared, chilling lines discussing stashing a rifle in the bushes, changing clothes after the act, and even the macabre detail of engraving words onto bullets. Every word, every symbol, felt like fragments from a disordered mind where violent ideas had hardened into a consuming obsession. Just a day later, investigators followed the trail to a shocking discovery. A Mauser Model 9.830 sniper rifle, .306 caliber, tightly wrapped in a dark towel and hidden at the edge of the UVU campus. Beside it lay shell casings engraved by hand, messages that sent a shiver through authorities, anti-fascist slogans, fragments of the song Bella Ciao, and even sneering, hateful taunts. Clearly, Robinson did not merely intend to kill. He wanted to send a warped political message, etched in cold steel and red blood. When all these details are strung together, they form a picture as horrifying as it is compelling, like a detective novel you can't put down. But this is no novel. It is reality, unfolding in the heart of America on an otherwise ordinary September day. And the question that hangs heaviest over the public is this: did Robinson act alone, or was he only a pawn in a much darker political game? In an investigation that felt ripped from a Hollywood crime thriller, every tiny detail of Tyler Robinson's path drew authorities deeper into a labyrinth of truth. After the family's urgent phone call, the puzzle pieces began to fall into place, revealing a meticulously calculated plan for assassination. What chilled the public most was the way each piece of evidence surfaced, as if Robinson had deliberately scattered clues like a predator eager to flaunt its trail of blood. The first breakthrough came from Utah Valley University's silent witness, its surveillance cameras. In the grainy footage, Robinson appeared at 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, driving the familiar gray Dodge Challenger. He stepped out calmly, dressed in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black cap with a white logo, and bright shoes, a look so ordinary it almost felt harmless. And yet, that very ordinariness made him more terrifying. When investigators later confronted him, he was still wearing the exact same outfit, as if defiantly proclaiming, "I am the one who did this." Conversations with Robinson's family made the picture even darker. One relative described how he had grown increasingly obsessed with politics in recent years, constantly railing against figures he despised. On the night before the attack, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk's scheduled appearance at UVU, dripping venom and contempt. To him, Kirk was a symbol of hate, a man who spread hatred. That animosity seemed to ignite the fuel for a deadly plan. But the key that unlocked the door to Robinson's mind came not from family, but from the small apartment he shared with his roommate. When pressed by investigators, the roommate hesitated, then admitted Robinson had once joked on Discord about guns and vague schemes. That so-called joke quickly turned into the smoking gun once his phone was opened. On the screen, chilling messages glowed. "I left the rifle in the bushes. Need to change clothes after it's done. Engraving words on the bullets to make it unique." Reading those cold words, investigators could almost feel the pulse of an assassin. Each sentence, each emoji, revealed a mind consumed by obsession and violence. Robinson wasn't merely planning a murder. He was preparing a performance, a grim statement carved into steel and fire. What they found next turned the case into a full-blown storm. Following the trail of digital breadcrumbs, law enforcement discovered a Mauser Model 9830 sniper rifle, .306 caliber, wrapped in a dark towel and hidden at the edge of the UVU campus. But more disturbing than the rifle itself were the shell casings beside it. On the spent rounds, Robinson had etched bizarre phrases. "Catch the fascist," scrawled alongside strange arrows and symbols. On the unspent shells, the inscriptions were even more unnerving. The revolutionary anthem, "Bella Ciao," and a mocking line that read, "If you can read this, you're gay." Each engraving was like a twisted diary entry from a radicalized mind. Investigators realized Robinson wasn't simply pulling a trigger. He was leaving behind a grotesque political manifesto, forcing the nation to bear witness. Every line, every mark, echoed like a haunting laugh from the shadows, taunting both the law and public conscience. When all the evidence was stitched together, the portrait that emerged was both horrifying and strangely compelling. A young man, consumed by political obsession, plotted an assassination with surgical precision, leaving behind bullets engraved with hatred. And as the public absorbed these revelations, a chilling question echoed across the nation. Was this truly the act of one disturbed individual, or was Robinson merely a pawn in a much darker political game still hidden from view? At the very heart of the tense investigation, when all eyes were fixed on Tyler Robinson, the physical evidence collected transformed the case from an ordinary shooting into a grotesque stage play laden with hidden meanings. And it was through the rifle, the shell casings, and the bizarrely engraved words that the dark psychology of the suspect began to emerge, both tantalizing and terrifying. Authorities recovered the weapon of horror, a Mauser Model 9830 sniper rifle, .306 caliber, carefully wrapped in a dark towel and hidden at the edge of Utah Valley University's campus. This was no random firearm. It was a weapon chosen for its long-range precision, the unmistakable tool of an assassin. The moment the rifle was pulled into the light, public reaction exploded. Robinson hadn't merely chosen to kill. He had chosen to kill in a way that carried a chilling message, a macabre signature. But what left investigators and the public breathless wasn't the rifle. It was the shell casings found with it. Each one seemed like a fragment of a sick game Robinson had created. On a spent casing, etched crudely by hand, were the words, "Catch the fascist," accompanied by arrow symbols pointing up and down. The phrase resembled both a political slogan and a cryptic code. Was Robinson trying to send a message, or was it nothing more than the unconscious rambling of a fractured mind? The unspent rounds were even more disturbing. One bore the inscription, "Oh, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao Ciao." The reference to the famed Italian resistance anthem, a song of defiance against fascism that has echoed across decades, raised chilling questions. Did Robinson see himself as a revolutionary warrior? Or was this just a twisted joke meant to mock the very ideals the song once stood for? Another casing was more grotesque still. "If you can read this, you're gay, LMAO." It was a disturbing blend of mockery, contempt, and deranged amusement. Clearly, Robinson's motives went far beyond taking a life. He wanted to leave behind a distorted legacy, one where each bullet became not just a projectile, but a message aimed straight at the psyche of anyone who dared to interpret it. Forensic experts describe the engravings as the echoes of a fractured mind. Carving words into ammunition isn't just unusual. It takes time, patience, and a disturbing level of obsession. To Robinson, each bullet wasn't merely a weapon. It was a witness to his twisted beliefs. That meticulous attention to detail painted a frightening picture. This was not an impulsive act of violence, but a carefully designed plan, prepared days or even weeks in advance. What fascinated and horrified the public most was the question of Robinson's true purpose. Some believed he was attempting to craft a political statement, turning assassination into a manifesto against the figures he despised. Others argued it was nothing more than a dark hunger for notoriety, a desperate bid to etch his name into infamy with the bizarre phrases he carved. Whatever the motive, the truth was undeniable. Robinson had turned bullets, already instruments of death, into vessels of propaganda, warped works of bloody art. Utah's sheriff admitted he had never encountered a case where the evidence itself told the story in such detail. The bullets became witnesses, narrating the frenzy, extremism, and obsession seething in Robinson's mind. And each time the public revisited those bizarre inscriptions, the same question surfaced again and again. Did Robinson truly act alone, or was there a deeper layer, an unseen hand, using him as a pawn to transform the entire crime into a political message of its own? The moment the gunshot rang out at noon on September 10th, the clock of death began to tick. At 12:23 p.m., a bullet cut through the air at Utah Valley University and claimed the life of Charlie Kirk. In that instant, the campus, once bustling with life, was thrown into chaos and panic. But what few realized was that the very same moment also triggered one of the fastest, most aggressive investigations in the modern history of the FBI and Utah law enforcement. Just 16 minutes after the shooting, at 12:39 p.m., the first FBI agents and county sheriffs arrived on the scene. While students and faculty were still fleeing in terror, the area had already been sealed off. A security perimeter was erected within minutes, enough to lock down the first fragments of the mystery. From that point forward, the FBI didn't treat this as merely a homicide. It was officially designated as a political assassination of symbolic weight, one that could rattle the entire nation. The next steps unfolded with breathtaking speed. The FBI immediately deployed fixed-wing aircraft, not only to transport agents and forensic specialists, but also to shuttle crucial evidence to laboratories at Quantico and ATF. This move alone revealed how seriously the case was prioritized. Every hour, every minute mattered, because each passing moment could shift the balance of the investigation. The following morning, September 11 at 10 a.m., the FBI released the first images of the suspect. By 10:45 a.m., they announced a $100,000 reward. The message to the public was unmistakable. You are not just witnesses, you are allies in this hunt. And almost immediately, thousands of leads poured in. By that evening, Governor Cox and FBI Director Kash Patel ordered the release of never-before-seen surveillance footage of the suspect, an aggressive strategy designed to escalate the pressure and force Robinson into exposure. The effect was immediate. At 10 p.m. on September 11th, just 33 hours after Charlie Kirk was gunned down, Tyler Robinson was arrested in Washington County. The FBI called it historic speed, noting that no politically charged case of such complexity had ever been resolved so quickly. It wasn't only technology and resources that made this possible. It was the seamless cooperation between federal, state, and local authorities, a living testament that when the law stands united, the shadows cannot hide for long. But the story was about more than speed. It was about transparency. Instead of cloaking the investigation in secrecy, the FBI and Utah officials chose to drip-feed information to the public, turning ordinary citizens into their eyes and ears. That transparency transformed the operation into a nationwide investigation, where over 11,000 leads were verified in less than 2 days. Behind the dazzling light of success, however, unsettling questions remain. Did Robinson truly act alone? Were the inscriptions carved into the shell casings mere sick jokes or encrypted codes carrying deeper meaning. And perhaps most ominously, was this only the beginning of a new wave of political violence? One thing, however, is certain. In less than 2 days, a crime that could have threatened